السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، نحمده ونسبحه ونقدسه، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وترحم على محمد وآل محمد كأفضل ما صليت وسلمت وباركت وترحمت على إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. وصل اللهم وسلم على خلفاء نبيك وأوصيائه أئمة المسلمين، علي أمير المؤمنين وقائد الغر المحجلين، وعلى البضعة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، وعلى سبطي نبي الرحمة وسيدي شباب أهل الجنة الحسن والحسين عليهما السلام، وعلى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والإمام الخلف الهادي المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل مخرجه. عباد الله، أوصي نفسي وأوصيكم أحبتي بتقوى الله ولزوم أمره. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه العزيز: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: وكذلك نري إبراهيم ملكوت السماوات والأرض وليكون من الموقنين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Last Friday I answered this question: where in the Quran is the concept of imamah and khilafah and vicegerency and succession mentioned? Where in the Quran? And I did answer this question if you go back to last week's sermon. This week I'm going to speak about the three distinguishing characterizations and equalities and peculiarities that distinguishes the Imam that has been ordained and appointed by God from a normal person. What are the three special things that an Imam enjoys that others do not enjoy? I'm going to speak about it today using this book, the Holy Quran, as an evidence. قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. We bring evidence from the book of God. But before that, let me reiterate what I said last week. When we speak about a government, we do not mean these current political governments, man-made governments, local governments. We are not speaking about that. God does not ordain a president. God does not ordain or select or choose or appoint a prime minister or a king or a leader here or there. This is the business of the people. This is what people should do. The people of every country, every community, every society, they get together through the political process that is supposed to be based on democracy, transparency, freedom of choice. They choose their own political leader. We are speaking, my friends, in this series, we are speaking about the universal imamah, the universal khilafah, the universal vicegerency of God on earth. Universal. People who have been selected and chosen by God Himself. So, and of course, when we speak about a prophet, we also speak about an imam. Both are divinely ordained and appointed. The imam is as important as the prophet, with one exception. A prophet, a messenger of God, Rasul or Nabi, receives revelation from God, receives scriptures, holy books from God. The imam does not receive revelation or a book. The imam continues the path, the duty, the task, the responsibilities of the Prophet. So he succeeds the Prophet, but he enjoys the same significance, the same importance, the same role. Now, there is a debate, of course, and this debate has been going on for many centuries between the schools of thought in Islam. One school, the school of the Sahaba, the school of the companions and the caliphs, argue that it is left, the issue of leadership and khilafah and imamah is left for the people to decide after the Prophet. And then they cite verses in the Quran. One of them, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. The other one, وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. Surah Ash-Shura, chapter 42, verse 38. وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. Their affair being counsel among them. So they decide who is going to be the leader, not God. But Amr here, my friends, in these two verses, وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. The second one, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ, Surah Al-Imran. This Amr is related, some scholars, including Sunni scholars such as Al-Fakhr al-Razi, he says Al-Amr here is a reference to the war, to the affairs of the war, the decision about a war. You must consult your community. Others, they say it's the day-to-day activities. You may consult, shower, you may consult your community, but it is not a reference to the Khilafah. Why? Because we read in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, Ayatul Ahd, verse 124, that God, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى Ibrahim, God tested, tried Ibrahim بكلمات فأتمهن قال إني جاعلك للناس إماما قال ومن ذريتي قال لا ينال عهد الظالمين. This verse is termed Ayatul Ahd. Why? Because there is the word Ahd. Ahd here means my covenant, my job, my affair, my matter. I would not give it to any person. قال إني جاعلك للناس إماما. I am the one who appoints and ordains and chooses and selects vicegerency and caliph and successor to the Prophet. I choose the Prophet and his successor too. لا ينال عهد الظالمين. So the Khilafah is Ahdullah, Amrullah, Sha'nullah, Amrun Ilahi, related to God. And God would not give it to this right to anyone, because we also read in the Quran, we read in Surah Al-An'am, verse 124, if you remember last week, Allahu a'lamu haythu yaj'alu risalata. God knows best where to place his message. So he chooses the people to carry his message to mankind. He chooses those individuals. The other verse, وَرَبُّكَ يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيَخْتَارُ. Surah Al-Qasas, verse 68. وَرَبُّكَ, it is your Lord that creates what he will and chooses for leadership. وَيَخْتَارُ, chooses for leadership. Leadership here means the imamah, the khilafah, the succession to the Prophet, and also the prophets and the messengers. Prophets and the messengers and their successors, the caliphs. It is the job of God. ما كان لهم الخيرة. No choice have they in this matter. They have no choice. And therefore, it is God who assigns and designates and commissions and ordains prophets and their successors. Now, my friends, how the caliph is different, how the caliph and the imam who has been appointed by God is different from others. Is he different or not? Definitely he's different. How? Let me mention 3 points today. Point number one. The Prophet and the imam who succeeds him, the wasi, the vicegerent who succeeds him, has to be free of sins completely in all departments. Now, there is a debate among the Muslim scholars when it comes to the issue of infallibility and isma, the sinlessness of the prophets. There is a debate. Some believe that the isma is only infallibility and this immunity protection against error, against forgetfulness, against confusion is limited, and it is only when they receive the message from God and they pass it to the people. Other than that, they are not infallible. They can commit a sin, a mistake in their personal life, with their friends, with their community members. They may forget. They may even read the Quran wrongly, as they say in their books. They attribute to the Prophet that he forgot the Quran, or he got confused, so he started reading wrong verses. This is what they say in their books. But when it comes to the school of Ahlul Bayt, the Shia Islam, we believe that the Prophet, the Messenger, as well as the Imam who succeeds them, are infallible even in their personal life, with their families, with their friends. Public life as well as personal life. In all departments. Why? Because if they are not trustworthy, if we believe that a prophet or an imam may commit a sin or a mistake, or he might get confused, or he might send the wrong message or give the wrong answer, then how can we trust that he's speaking on behalf of God? How can we trust that the book that he brought for us is from God? How can? It's all about the trust. It's all about the trustworthiness. Being honest, being trustworthy, being reliable, being someone who's protected from sins, from errors, mishaps, mistakes. Otherwise, we cannot trust the Prophet. And if we can't trust him, then we can't trust religion. So God will give them immunity, but not just out of nowhere. They have the grounds, they have the seeds, they are ready for it. They don't, with their own will, free will, they don't commit a sin. And the concept of infallibility is in this book. This book is replete with instances where God speaks about infallibility of the prophets. And this is not the subject that I would discuss today, maybe at another time. We have to have an extensive discussion about isma, infallibility. But that is the difference. That is the difference, number one. Now, give me an evidence of what you are saying. The evidence is in the Quran, chapter 33, verse 33. إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. God only desires to remove defilement from you or the family of the Prophet and purify you completely. Absolute purification against moral sins, spiritual sins, ethical sins, material sins, and mistakes. You are purified. In the Quran, in Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 59, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ. Obey God, obey His apostle, obey those who are in charge after the Prophet, and those are the Imams. You know what Imam Ali says about this? He says, مطهرون لا يأمرون بمعصية. God asked us to follow ulil amr, those who are in charge, because they are clean, they are sinless, they are infallible, they are immaculate. They don't command or instruct people to commit a sin. They don't. They are clean, trustworthy. You can depend on them. You can blindly accept what they tell you because they are protected against any error, any sin, any misguidance. So that is the issue of isma. The imam is different from others. He's ma'soom. He's protected. He has immunity. While others are not. Others, caliphs who came to power, my friends, look at their history. Look at what they did before Islam, during their Islam, before and after, before their leadership, before they became caliphs, while they were caliphs. They committed many errors, many mistakes, many misjudgments. They gave the wrong answers. They are not protected. Only specific people are protected. A selected few that God wants them to be in charge. وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ. He says this in the book. In chapter 4, this is what God says. Obey God, obey His apostle, and obey those who are in charge. Those who are in charge is not King Fulan and Amir Fulan and President Fulan. No. Those who are in charge, وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ, are the infallible Imams of the school of Ahlul Bayt, the successors to Prophet Muhammad, and they are 12 successors, including Fatima, because the hadith explains. Why do we bring Fatima in the middle? Because the Prophet did so. All the books of both sides, when they speak about the verse of purity, Ayatul Tathir, they say the Prophet brought Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein under the cloak. He covered them and he said, "O Allah, those are my family. So remove defilement and impurity from them." The second difference, my friends, let's go to the second one. The Imam that is infallible and sinless, his knowledge is unconventional, uncommon, uncustomary. He doesn't go to school like us. It's like Prophet Muhammad. He didn't go to school. Prophet Muhammad did not even have a teacher, not even a single teacher in his life. His teacher was God through Archangel Gabriel. أَدَّبَنِي رَبِّي فَأَحْسَنَ تَأْدِيبِ. The only teacher he had was God. Thus, the Imams who succeed him, they receive their knowledge from God, but through Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not through revelation, not wahi. The Prophet receives it through revelation and wahi, but the Imams after him, they don't receive it through wahi, through revelation from God. They receive it from the chain of commands, from their grandfather, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Where is it in the Quran that God bestows His knowledge? It's in this chapter, Surah Al-Kahf, ayah number 65. وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا آتَيْنَاهُ رَحْمَةً مِنْ عِنْدِنَا وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا. God says we bestowed knowledge from us, not from a college or university or a school or a teacher, from us. Min ladunna. This is why this type of knowledge is named al-ilmul ladunni, the divine knowledge that God bestows upon certain servants of Him, certain emissaries that He chooses to lead mankind. علمناه من لدنا علما. And there are many references to the knowledge of the prophets and the Imams, the vicegerents of God, in the Holy Quran. Many references. One of them, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا وَكَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يُوقِنُونَ. See, يُوقِنُونَ. They were certain of our signs We, the people, ordinary people, we are not certain. Even the knowledge that we possess, maybe not 100% accurate. It's dhan. إِنْ يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ. It's conjecture. Dhan. It could be right, it could be wrong. Any person other than the prophets and the imams, any person, any scholar, any scientist, any leader, his or her knowledge could be accurate or it could be inaccurate. Even science today, when they say we trust science, what sort of science? Is all science and scientific theories are 100% accurate? No. This is why sometimes scientists, they change their mind. At one point in their life, they were pro this idea. After 20, 30, 50 years, they changed their mind. They said, no, that was a mistake. This is the new theory. This is the new idea. Look at today the vaccine. Look at the vaccine. Sometimes they send it to the market. After a few days, they withdraw it again. They don't know themselves. They don't know that then science is not always accurate. Science is man-made, my friends. It's not revelation from God. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not, because it's man-made. While the knowledge of the Imam and the Prophet, of course, is God-given, bestowed by God. Yuqinun, certainty. That is the difference. So he would not give you the wrong answer. A prophet or an imam, impossible for a prophet or an imam to give you the wrong answer. But any other person other than them might give you the wrong answer. Because his knowledge is not from God. His knowledge from books, from research, from studying. Sometimes he reaches the right conclusion, sometimes the wrong conclusion. This is why even the scholars, when they write the fatwa, the verdict, they say, Wallahu a'lam, God knows the best. This is to the best of my ability. I worked very hard to reach this answer, this verdict, this conclusion, but maybe I'm wrong. God knows the best. And therefore in Surah Al-An'am, Allah says about Ibrahim, وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلْيَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُوقِنِينَ. Min al-muqinin means possessing certainty. We have given him the malakut, the domain, the kingdom, the knowledge, the secrets of the samawat, the heavens, and the earth. So he becomes knowledgeable, and his knowledge is certain, absolutely accurate, because this is from us. We opened this window for him to learn. It's from us, not from a teacher. And sometimes God would allow them to know the unseen. As God says about Isa alayhi, وَأُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا تَأْكُلُونَ فِي بُيُوتِكُمْ وَمَا تَدَّخِرُونَ. I am able to tell you, O the children of Israel, I can tell you what you are eating in your homes and what you are saving and storing. The food that you store, I can tell you about it. This is a knowledge that God has given him. This is ilmul ghayb, the unseen. He did not have monitors or cameras to see what they eat. God has informed him. And therefore in Surah Al-Jinn, alimul ghayb, God is the knower of the unseen. God, فَلَا يُظْهِرْ, he does not disclose his knowledge to anyone except, except. فَلَا يُظْهِرُ عَلَى غَيْبِهِ أَحَدًا إِلَّا مَنْ ارْتَضَى مِنْ رَسُولٍ, except or save to the one whom he approves. Rasul here does not necessarily mean a prophet. Rasul means someone who has been dispatched, delegated by God. It could be a prophet, it could be a messenger, it could be an imam. Rasul here, see, it is generic, not al-Rasul, Rasul. Rasul means delegation from God, someone who has been chosen and employed by God. It could be an imam. So even an imam, if God wants him to know the unseen, he will give him that knowledge. He will enable him. He will open that window for him to know the unseen. Unseen belongs to God, but sometimes God, according to this verse, إِلَّا مَنْ ارْتَضَى مِنْ رَسُولٍ. In certain instances, God would allow the prophets and the Imams to know and understand and inform their followers about the unseen, ilmul ghaib. That is the second difference. The third one, and the last one, is Imama, my friends, unlike the political khilafah after the Prophet, whether so-called Khulafa al-Rashideen or Umayyad or Abbasid, Imama, the rightful Imama to the Prophet, the rightful succession to the Prophet is continuous, uninterrupted, okay, connected, consecutive, and successive. Uninterrupted, continuous. Not even for one day it becomes interrupted, not even for 1 hour. Since the time of Adam until the last day of this life, God sent emissaries, messengers, prophets, awsiya, successors. He did not leave the earth, not even for 1 hour, without a vicegerent from him, appointed from him, by him. God did not leave power vacuum in this universe, not even for 1 hour. Where is it in the Quran? Read Surah Al-Zukhruf, chapter 43, verse 28. God speaks about Ibrahim being the patriarch, the forefather of all the prophets. All those prophets, they end up with their grandfather, great-grandfather Ibrahim alayhi salam, the patriarch. Abul Anbiya, the father of all the prophets. وَجَعَلَهَا كَلِمَةً بَاقِيَةً فِي عَقِبِهِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. And God made it a word, a covenant among his posterity, the future generation, his descendants. Kalimah. This kalimah is khilafah and imamah, a covenant with God to lead the earth. So that line of succession is uninterrupted. This is why we believe Imam al-Mahdi is alive. Not that he's going to be born, as some of the Sunnis believe. We believe that he's already born, because if he's not alive, then it means that for now, almost 1200 years, we have no leader. There is a power vacuum. Not only us as human beings, all the kainat, every creature, the entire universe will be left with power vacuum, and God would not allow this to happen. And I'm going to elaborate on why we need a leader on Sunday night, inshallah, the eve of mid-Sha'ban, when I speak about Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam at 8 p.m. Pacific time. And Hadith al-Thaqalain, my friends, reaffirms that the book and the leaders, Ahlul Bayt, are inseparable, indivisible. They are not going to separate. لَن يَفْتَرِقَا. They are integral parts to each other. لَن يَفْتَرِقَا حَتَّى يَرِدَ عَلَيَ الْحَوْض. This is the Prophet. The Prophet says this book is going to continue until the Day of Judgment, and my family, وَأَهْلُ بَيْتِي, are going to continue. So if we don't have Imam Mahdi now, he's not born, as some people believe, then this means that this book is alone, and therefore the hadith of the Prophet is not accurate. Astaghfirullah. The Prophet is always accurate because his knowledge, his information are from God. وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. So remember, my friends, an Imam, a Caliph who is appointed by God, has 3 distinguishing characteristics, manners, qualities, and attributes, which makes him different from others. Number 1, isma, infallibility. Number 2, his knowledge is al-ilmu ladunni, from God. وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. It's unconventional. It's not from books or teachers. It's from God. Number 3, this line of succession is uninterrupted, continuous, does not stop, until the last hour and the last minute of this life. May Allah protect you and bless you. May Allah enlighten our hearts and our minds with the right and accurate knowledge, with a strong faith in Him and in His path, so we can follow God accurately. We can follow the right direction. May Allah open up our souls, our hearts, our minds, our brains to the truth always, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.